Last class we have studied this part mainly, that is with respect to the data, what are different type of data and other attributes. So you should be in a position to identify the type of attribute required for a specific scenario. For a given data, you should be able to classify into one of the attributes, one of the type of attributes which you have learned. So the next is the statistical description of data. So it's like you cannot use the data as it is in most of the cases. There is some pre-processing which is very much necessary. So for this data pre-processing to be successful, you need to have a overall picture of your data which you will be using it. Okay. So here basic statistical description. So we can use this particular thing to identify properties of the data, and using this you can also highlight or you can see which data can be treated as noise or the outliers. So there are different central tendencies which we'll be studying, that is mean, median and mode. And apart from this, we should, I mean, this is this central tendency. This central tendency means the location, the central location of data, or the center of the data distribution where most of your data lies. Okay. So that is the central tendency. Apart from this, to know your that is something which helps you for data processing. Apart from central tendency, we should be in a position to know, or we should have an idea about dispersion of the data, how the data is dispersed. So, or rather, how the data is spread out. So, apart from this, we'll be studying the data dispersion methods such as your quartiles, interquartile range. There is something called 5-point summary. There is something called your block spots, box plots. There is something called variance and standard deviation. So everything, this is central tendency, mean, median, and mode. Apart from this, there are multiple things or multiple dispersion measures which gives you an idea about how the data is spread out. Okay. So we'll study all this one by one. The first thing is with respect to the central tendency. So we'll start with mean. So this particular equation here helps you in calculation of the means. So suppose there is some and there are a set of values which are observed, say x1, x2 till xl. So these are n values which are observed for this attribute. Okay. So these values are called your observations for this particular attribute, and this can also be called as or referred as data set. There's a data set for x, for this x. So the most common method or the numeric measure which gives you idea of center of set of data is mean. So this is the value, or this is the formula which you can use to calculate mean of a data set or mean of a attribute which has multiple observations or multiple numeric values which this particular attribute can have. Okay. So there is one example. This is in salary, and each salary is, that is $1,000. 30 means $30,000. So the question tells this salaries are arranged in increasing order. So find the mean of it. So using this thing, it's just like you have to add everything divided by total number of values. So it's like you will add everything from 30 till 110. Total is 12. So there are 12 observations for this particular attribute, which is salary. So mean of the salary is 58. So the mean of this particular data set, which are the observation for the salary attribute, is 58,000. So this is with respect to the mean. So there is in few cases there are there might be a case where each value xi may be associated with a weight, that is wi. So the weight reflects here, the each wi reflects the significance of xi. It can be the significance, or it can be the occurrence, or how important this xi is. So if there is a weight associated with each of the SI, you can compute, or you will be computing something known as weighted arithmetic mean or weighted average by using this particular formula. So there is no, specific problems as such. So in case in the question, if there is a weight associated for each of the xi, there is a wi associated with it. So instead of this particular equation, you will be using this particular equation to find out something called as weighted arithmetic mean or weighted average. So the next is median. Before going to this median, we will see how do you calculate the normal median. So this equation is used when the median is given in terms of range. That is median, there is the data lies between 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50. If the data is in terms of this range, if the range is given, you will be using this median. This equation for calculating the median. But if the data is normal or very straightforward like this, the same data if you consider, it's not in terms of ranges. It's like some specific values. So again, suppose there is a given data set which contains or n values for an attribute x. Here we consider this attribute as a salary. Okay. So it has to be sorted in some order. Say it is sorted in increasing order if you consider the same example. So if the n is odd, okay, if n is odd, if there are n odd number of observations, the median is the middle value. If n is even, as in our case, there are 12 observations, so it is even. So your median is two middlemost elements. Okay. So for example, take the same data set. There are 12 observations. So n is even. So we have to take the two middlemost. Two middlemost in this is 52 and 56. So median will be average of this. It is 52 plus 56 divided by 2, which gives you 54. So median of the data set is $54,000 for this data set. So suppose you remove this particular last element, 110 you remove. There are 11 observations now. Okay. So as per this information, you have to take the middle value. So you have to just count from here. So you have 1 to 11. So the middlemost value might be 52, I guess. So here you have 5 values. Here you have 5 values. The middle is 52. So median for the data set, in case you remove this last value, would be 52. That is when n is odd. So as I told you, this particular equation, which is on the screen, is used when the data set is in terms of interval. So if there are interval of data, like the data set is in between 20 to 30 and you have the frequency given, so we'll be using this data set where this L1 in the equation is lower boundary of that median interval. N is the number of values in the entire data set, and this sigma frequency is the sum of the frequency of all the intervals in the data set. It is summation of all the frequencies of all the intervals in the data set, and this frequency medium gives you the frequency of the median interval, and the width is just the median interval, that is width of the median. Here width might be 10, 20 to 30, the width is 10. So it's just the, I mean, you have to just know the equation for this. It's like if maybe in MCQs or maybe in one word, well, that is first uh, 0.5 marks. If at all it is asked what is the equation of the median when the data is in terms of interval. So maybe you have to just write this particular equation. So the next is mean is done, median is done. So the next central tendency is mode. So any idea what is mode, or given this data set, what is the mode? How to find out mode of the data set?
Assert the value that occurs the most number of times.
Value that occurs the most number of times. For example, if you take the same data set, is there anything which is occurring twice, or see 30 just once, 52 it's occurring twice, 70 it is occurring twice. So as far as this data set is concerned, it is bimodal. Okay. It is bimodal, and the modes of the data set are 52,000 and 70,000. Okay. So suppose the data set is something like this. What is the mode of this particular data set? Suppose it is that each single number. What is the mode of this particular data set?
Force.
4, because 4 is the number which has been repeated more number of times when all the other put together. All the other put together, what I mean is 2 is repeated, but only 3 times. The highest number of times a number which is repeated is 4. So it is unimodal, and the mode of this particular data set is 4. Okay. So there are multiple types of mode. That is a data set. This is bimodal because there are two number of or two values which are repeated twice. That is the maximum number of times. Okay. So the next is bimodal. Yeah, this is bimodal. This is unimodal because only one number is repeated max number of times. Then there might be trimodal data set also. where there might be any three numbers which are repeated the maximum number of times. For example, 1 1, 2 2, 3 3, 4 5 6. Here 1 is repeated twice, 2 is repeated twice, 3 is repeated twice. So this particular data is trimodal in nature, and the modes are 1, 2, and 3. So if the data set which with two or more modes are generally called as multimodal. So this is with respect to the mode. So there is one more thing which we'll be studying, that is called mid-range. Mean, median, mode, and mid-range. So what do you mean by a mid-range of the data set? Any idea? How to calculate a mid-range rather? So mid-range of data is largest value in the data set, smallest value in the data set, average of those. In the data set which we have used, the smallest is 30,000. The largest is 110. So average of this will give you 70,000. So mid-range of the data set which we had considered for the salary thing is 30 plus 110 divided by 2, which gives you 70. Okay. So these are the few central tendencies, and based on this thing you can draw some graphs and make some observations. So this, all the three things are a graphs which is drawn for a specific data set. So it's like most of the data set in the real world, or the data set which are used in real world applications, are not symmetric in nature. Most of them is either positively skewed or negatively skewed. Okay. So if the value of the mode is smaller than the median, the data tends to be positively skewed. On the other hand, if the mode of the data is greater than median of the data altogether or in general tends to be negatively skewed. These are the few observations. So you should know what is the relation between thing, or how the data in general behaves when mode is less than median or mode is greater than median. If the mode is less than median, the data tends to be positively skewed when you draw the graph. When the mode is greater than the median, the data is negatively skewed. Next is, as I told you, this is with respect to the central tendencies. So next is the dispersion, how the data is spread out. So for that, we'll be studying few dispersion methods, which are range, quartiles, variance, standard deviation, interquartile range, and based on this, we'll study how the data visualization can be done. Okay. So the first is the quartiles. So this particular graph will help you tell about the or give information about how the quartile is actually calculated, or which can be marked. Okay. So the quartile is with respect to the range. This, for example, each year can be divided into four quartiles in general. Okay. So how the quartile is given? So the quartiles in general gives an indication about how the data is spread what is the shape of the data? Here you are getting a bell curve. It's a perfect bell curve. Okay. And what is the center of the distribution? So when you draw a quartile graph, you will get mainly three information, that is data distributions center, the spread, and also the shape. So as far as this particular thing is concerned, or this particular graph is concerned, the first quartile is denoted by Q1, that is this 25th percentile. So it basically cuts off your lowest 25% of the data. And the third quartile is denoted by Q3, which basically cuts off the highest 25% of the data. And Q2 refers the 50th percentile. So basically it acts as the median, and it is the center of the data distribution, Q2. So there is something called, if you can see here, interquartile range. So interquartile range is denoted by IQR. So it is the distance between the first and the third quartile. So IQR is calculated by Q3 minus Q1. Okay. So interquartile range is the distance between the first and the third quartiles. So this you need to know to calculate few other things in the coming slides. So IQR is nothing but the distance between the third and the first quartile. Okay. If you take the same example which you have studied here, this is the range 30, 36, 47, 50. If you take this same data set, so as I told you, it is 12 observations sorted in increasing order. And we need three quartiles, Q1, Q2, and Q3. So you need to actually divide the data set into like first 25%, the next 25%, and the last 25%, something like this. Okay. So basically four different things. So you have to see the total number of observations here is 12. So the 25% of 12 gives you 3. Okay. So we will be dividing the data set like 3 values in one. So we'll be having 4 different data sets or 4 equal parts. Okay. So the data set for, we are interested with the 25th percentile, 50th percentile, and 75th percentile. So in general, if you consider this data set, we are interested in the third value, the sixth value, and the ninth value. Okay. So as far as this data set is concerned, Q1 will be 47, and Q3, that is ninth value, will be Q3. Okay. So IQR for this, IQR for that particular range is IQR. This particular thing is Q3. Q3 is the ninth value, that is 63. Q1 is 47, that is the third value. So IQR will be 16, $16,000. Okay. So as I told you, this we have considered the third value, 6th value and 9th value. We have used 3rd value here for Q3, 9th value, sorry, 3rd value for Q1 and 9th value for Q3. What does this 6th value denote? Here 6th value is 52. So what does this 52 denote? This is Q1, this is Q3, 52 is Q2. So what is the 52? What does this signify? Quartile 2. What does quartile 2 signify?
Median.
Median. Quartile 2, as I told you, is the median. So median of the data is 52. That is your 6th value. Okay. So the next thing is, or maybe what is the disadvantage of this quartile graph? You know Q1, you know the median, that is Q2, you know Q3. But even if you combine all those together or put everything together, you don't have information about the endpoints. That is, what is the first value, what is the last value, or you can call tails of the data. You know this Q1, which is somewhere here. You know median, you know Q3. But what is the values of tails of the data? That is this point and this point. You don't have any information when you consider just the quartile graph. Okay. So to solve that particular problem, we use something called 5-number summary. Okay. So here, apart from Q1, Q2, that is median, and Q3, we include the minimum number and or the minimum value and the maximum value of the data set. So this 5 altogether, that is minimum, maximum, Q1, median and Q3, constitute something called 5-number summary. Okay. So this is with respect to the 5-number summary. So if you are asked to write what is Q1, you know how to do. That is, you have to calculate the 25th percentile. Q2, you know, that is 50th percentile. Q3, you know how to calculate the 75th percentile. You have to divide the data into 4 equal parts. So the depending on the thing, the size of the data, the last number in the first part will be the Q1, Q2 will be the 50th percentile, whatever number you get, and Q3 will be the 75th percentile. So you have to just divide the data and calculate what is Q1, Q2 and Q3. That is with respect to the quartile graph. But in case 5-number summary of the data set is asked, you have to just see what is the minimum, that is the lowest number in the data set, what is the highest number of the data set. You have to just add those two values to get the 5-point summary. Okay. Hopefully this particular thing is clear. Next is, we'll see something called as box plot. So this box plot, for which one of the example is already on the slide. It's a very popular way of to see how the data is distributed. Okay. So this box plot actually incorporates your 5-point summary. The 5-point summary can be incorporated using this blocks plot. So you have to first know how to infer a blocks plot. Okay, this is very important. So there are two range. I mean, this is consider just this part. Okay. So the first line here and the third line here gives you Q1 and Q3 respectively. Okay. The middle line here gives you Q2. Okay. And there are two lines here. If you can see dotted lines, which end at something. There is some dash here and one more endpoint here. Okay. So these two gives the smallest and largest value of the data set. So the smallest value of data set maybe is 40 here, and largest value is 160, maybe little less than that, and this is again little less than that. So if you just assume this it's ending at 40, the 40 might be the smallest value and 160 might be the largest value here. So when you combine all this, okay, when you combine all this, you will be getting the smallest value, I mean the largest value here, smallest value here, apart from Q3, Q2 and Q1. So basically 5-point summary. Okay. So you might be wondering what are these two dots? Again, that has its own significance. You have to, you know what, how to calculate IQR, that is interquartile range. So you have to calculate interquartile range for a given data set, and you have to see what is that number, which is 1.5 times of this interquartile range for this data set. Okay. If there are few values in data set which is beyond this 1.5 times of IQR, those 2 points are called outliers or noise, which are marked separately with a dot. So if you can, if you consider for this is one example. Okay. Yeah, this is one example where you have plotted a blocks plot for unit price data for all the items sold at 4 different batches of a particular organization. In that you can see the lowest and largest value of one of the branch. So you can see that median Q2 is 80, Q1 is 60, and Q3 is 100. What is IQR? How is it calculated?
Q3 minus Q1.
Q3 minus Q1. That is 100 minus 60, which gives you 40. So this particular things, that is the values approximately 175 and approximately 205 are more than 1.5 of 40. Okay. So you will be just keeping a dot telling that these are considered to be outliers or potential. You cannot straight away call it as outliers. They are called as potential outliers. So, and usually the the research on various data sets have been, you can conclude that the block plot in general can be computed at n log n time. So any block plot, if you want to draw a block plot of any standard data set, the usual time is n log n. So the next two things which we'll be studying is variance and standard deviation. Okay. So again, as you know, these are the measures of data dispersion. They usually indicate how the data distribution is or how the data is spread out. So a low standard deviation, if the standard deviation is very low, you can conclude that the distribution is very close to the mean of the data. If the standard deviation is very high, you can conclude that the data set is spread out over a large value. If the data standard deviation is low, which means that all the data is very close to the mean. If the standard deviation is very high, which means that data is spread out over a long range of values. You cannot tell anything that it is lies in this part only or this part only. It might lie over a large value. And the variance of the data is calculated using this particular equation, or we'll be using this particular equation rather, where your x bar is the mean of the data. The mean of the data is using this particular equation, the same equation, that is summation of all the values divided by total number of values. So if you use the same data set, the salary wala data set, so it's like 1 by 12 divided by 30 square plus whatever you get till 110 square minus, we have got the mean as 58 here. You can see mean of the data set was 58 minus 58,000. So if you actually solve this, you will end up getting 379.1. That is sigma square. You have to be careful here. This is sigma square. So standard deviation sigma would be 19.37. That is square root of this. So this is the basic things with respect to your standard, that is central tendency of the data, and also measuring the dispersion of the data. Okay. The next is graphic displays. Graphic displays. So this is, you should, if some data set is given, you should be in a position to draw anything and everything of this. Calculate mean of the data, median of the data, mode of the data, mid-range of the data, weighted arithmetic mean of the data, provided weight is given. Calculate the quartiles. From this, maybe write a 5-point summary, plot the data, that is plot your blocks plot. Next, you should also be able to plot the other things we'll be studying. Okay. So it's not just theory. Theory might be very minimal. More of problems from now, or rather from this class, it's more of problems, very less of theory. It doesn't mean you don't have to know the theory, because without theory you can't solve the problems. Anyways, so this next is graphic displays of how the data is distributed. So there are different graphic displays. One is your quantile plot. The next is quantile plot, QQ plot. The next is histogram, and finally scatter plots. So we'll be studying these four graphic displays one by one. The first is your quantile plot. So a quantile plot, as the slide itself tells, is the most simple and effective way to have a look at the data distribution, especially if the data is univariate in nature. So one example is given here. Table is given, and for your to calculate this or to plot this quantile plot, you need to have a f value. Okay. So here, if I is from 1 to n, so it is the value of I minus 0.5 divided by total number of observations. Okay, gives you the f1 score. So when you plot this f value against unit price, as far as this table is concerned, okay, so you have to first calculate the f value for all the data set or all the values, and then plot your unit price versus f value curve graph. So you will be getting a quantile plot. So as you can see, this particular data value, which corresponds to 0.5, is Q1. This 50th percentile gives you the median, and 75th percentile gives you the Q3. So in case you are asked to, you are given a data set and asked to draw a quartile plot and identify which is Q1, which is Q2, and which is Q3 in it. So you should be able, you should be in a position to first plot it. For that, you need to know this f value curve, what is that equation. You have to first find f for each I. For each I here, you have to find what is f, then plot the f value versus the attribute values. So you will be getting something like this. This is called your quantile plot. So the number corresponds to this is your Q1, corresponds to 50 as median, and correspond to 75 is your Q3. Okay. So the next is next method which we will be studying is something called quantile plot. Okay. So here you can also label it as QQ plot. So quantile and QQ remain means the same. So in question paper or anywhere, if you find, draw, or generate a QQ plot for the given data, so it's nothing but your quantile plot. Okay. So this particular plot usually allows the user to view whether there is a shift from one distribution to another. So this is the main use of it. So say there are you have the data of unit price of a particular item sold at two different branches, say B1 and B2, and you want to see whether there is a shift in the unit price, or maybe how the unit sold when compared to B1 and B2. This is basically one distribution. B1 is one distribution, B2 is one distribution, and the attribute which you are concentrating is unit price. So if you want to compare this, whether there is a shift or there is no shift, the best way to visualize that part is by plotting QQ plot. So this particular example or figure gives you a QQ plot. Considering, random data where this particular y-axis or x-axis gives you this unit price for branch 1, and this axis gives unit price for branch 2. So when you plot this one against the other, you will be getting a particular graph which is QQ plot. And again, here you can find what is the Q1 based on the values of the dataset. What is the median? Again, based on the values of dataset, you have to divide the dataset into 4 equal halves and see which is the 25th percentile, which is the 50th percentile, that is the median, and which is the 75th percentile, that is Q3. And you can specify those things in the graph itself. The next is a histogram, and I guess histogram everyone is aware of. So what is histogram? So it is the most easiest, I guess. In most of the cases, histogram will be in terms of bins or buckets. So here each of this is called a bin or a bucket, and height of each of the bar gives you the frequency. So here the width, height gives you the frequency. The width of each of the bar or each of the bin gives you the range of the data. Okay. So you can tell that if the unit price is between 100 to 110, there are around 4,000 or maybe little less than 4,000 items sold, whose unit price is between 100 to 110. This is straightforward. You will be given a data set. If you consider the same data set, this one, so the same data set, this particular histogram is being or was plotted. Okay, so 40 to 59. You have to first decide what is the width of the each of the bucket or each of the bin. Maybe based on the data distribution, here they have considered approx 20, 40 to 59, approx 20. Size of each of the bin is 20 as far as this particular figure is concerned. So you can decide based on the data set, or if in the question, if they have straightforward given consider the bin size to be or the bucket size to be 20, then you have to just group 20, first 20, next 20, and so on till you encounter the end of the data set, and see what is the count of the data set. The first 20, if you can see here, maybe the first 20, that is 40 to 59. Entire data set is not given, so maybe 40 to 59 somewhere here. The count of the items sold is 3,000. If you just count this here, 275 plus 300 plus 250 till the 59th value. So maybe you will get the total as 3000. So if your unit price is between 40 to 59, the items sold is, or the total number of items which are sold whose unit price is between 40 to 59 is 3000. So you will have a brief, I mean, or a, idea which unit price is getting sold more. See, for example, 5,000 items were sold whose price is between $80 to $99. So maybe based on this data, you can see which to avoid or which items you need not keep more and which items you need to keep more in your store so that your overall business is not badly affected. So maybe as far as this data is concerned, you will tend to buy or customers will tend to buy more within this range. So you'll keep items with this range more. You can see this particular thing, something for which unit price is too much, 120 to 139. Very few items are sold. So maybe the items within this range you need not keep. I mean, the variety of items need not be too much. Since very few people are buying, or rather very few quantities or items are getting sold, you need not keep too much. So you'll have some idea which items to keep more, or maybe you will be able to sell more, or which items is you are not able to sell more. Okay. So the next is the scatter plot, the last of the thing most probably. Okay. So this scatter plot is one of the most I can say effective, one of the most effective graphical methods, and it gives you a overview of whether there is a relationship or a pattern or a trend between two numeric attributes. Okay. So basically, uh, since the definition itself tells that it is useful to find a relationship between or a pattern or trend between two attributes. So obviously the data is bivariate in nature. Okay. So you can tell two attributes X and Y are correlated if one attribute implies the other. Okay. If one attribute implies the other, you can tell that these two attributes are correlated. Okay. This correlations, I guess you should be knowing, can be positive or negative or even null. There can be a null correlation or positive correlation or negative correlation. Okay. So here in this example, this particular graph, that is A, gives you a positive correlation. Why? Because as you can see, if you consider this as X and Y, as X increases, Y is also increasing. So there is a positive correlation. Okay. So here, as X is increasing, Y is decreasing. So there is a negative correlation between the attributes X and Y. Okay. So this is how you just plot a scatter plot based on the numbers, one attribute versus the other attributes, and try to find out whether there is a correlation between two attributes or not. So what does this signify? Whether there is any correlation with respect to these three graphs or not. Anyone? Based
Sir,
on the
no correlation.
yeah, you cannot tell anything. As x is increasing, y is constant. Here also you cannot tell anything. You cannot come to a particular decision. Here also you cannot tell anything. Till here it is nothing. Here there is increase, and then here there is nothing. So basically you cannot comment anything on the dependency of one attribute over another attribute. So you can tell that. I mean, if someone asks what is the correlation between with respect to these graphs, you can make two statements. Either you can tell there is no observed correlation, or there is null correlation, okay, between the two attributes, whatever the attribute is. Okay. So the next is the data visualization. These are the graphical representation of your data. The next is data visualization. There are again multiple data visualization techniques we'll be seeing one by one. Okay. So it's like you have this graphical representation, but you need to communicate the data very clearly and effectively to the user. All users might not be domain experts. So just by showing this graph, it doesn't make any sense to them because they might not be knowing anything about the data which you are using or the domain which you are working. But making them understand is important for you if you want to sell the product. So instead of this, we'll be as a something as a entrepreneur, or maybe as someone who wants to sell the product, data visualization is something which you have to take advantage of. Okay. So there are different data visualization techniques. We'll see one by one. First is pixel oriented visualization technique. This is the first thing which we'll be studying. Okay. So here, what this pixel oriented visualization technique does is, so here the main funda or the main logic is the color of the pixel. Okay. The lightest color gives you the smaller value, and the darkest color gives you the higher value. For example, if you consider this attribute, lightest color, that is white, tells that the income is very low, and the darkest color, that is jet black, tells that the income is very high. So lighter the shading, lesser the value of that particular attribute. Okay. So for a data with m dimensions, as far as this particular figure on your screen, m is 4. Income, credit limit, transaction volume, and age. Okay. So for a data set with m dimensions, here m is 4. Pixel oriented techniques, that is pixel oriented visualization, creates m windows on the screen. For m dimensions, m windows are created on your screen, where each window, as you can see, this is one window, this is the other window, this is the third window, and finally this is the fourth window. Each window corresponds to one of the dimensions. Okay. And here, in each dimension, m dimensions, the values are recorded, or the values of the record. Income might have different values in the record. So each of these values are mapped to m different pixels. Okay. So the color of the pixel reflects the corresponding values of the attribute. So this is how this pixel oriented method works. Okay. So if you want to infer this particular example, okay, consider a particular organization maintains the customer table. This is the customer table, which consists of 4 dimensions, as I told you: income, credit limit, transaction value, and your age. So based on this pixel value, you want to just analyze whether there is any correlation between the income, between the attribute income and remaining dimensions. Okay. And again, I've already told you, lighter the color, lighter the pixel color, lesser the value. So based on this, can you infer anything? I just want to analyze. Is there any correlation between the attribute income and other dimensions? And information which you know is lighter the color, lower the value, darker the color, larger the value. So is there anything you can, or any analysis or any sense you can make out, if you want to analyze the relationship between, or whether income is correlated to other attributes?
So more the income, more will be the credit limit for a given individual having a higher income.
Correct. See, if you see the just credit limit, more the income, more the credit limit. This is one observation you can make. And if you want to make observation between income and transaction value, if the income is in middle range,
medium values have the largest amount of transaction volume taking place.
So the median values will have more transaction volume. So that is one observation you can make. But if you want to make observation with respect to income and age, there is no correlation. Okay. So you can analyze something with respect to income and credit limit, or you can make a statement like, as income increases, credit limit increases. That statement you can make. With respect to income and transaction volume, you can make a statement like the middle level or middle class people or middle salaried people make more transactions, but you cannot tell anything with respect to income and age. It is scattered, so there is no correlation at all. So this is with respect to pixel oriented visualization. So the next thing is geometric projection of the data. Okay, there is one drawback with respect to your pixel oriented method. That is, if the data is multidimensional, or if you want me to put it in a better way, if you want to understand the data, distribution of data in a multi-dimensional space, then you cannot actually do it in the pixel oriented visualization. For such purposes, we use geometric projection. Okay. So here, geometric projection is mainly used to find intrinsic projections in multi-dimensional data set on a multi-dimensional space. Okay. So what is the central challenge? As you can say, it's like how to visualize a high-dimensional data on a 2D display. So this is what you are trying to achieve using your geometric projection. So here you can tell X and Y are two spatial attributes. Okay, these are the two spatial attributes, or maybe 2 dimensions, and the third dimension is represented by different shapes. Okay. Again, if you see, this particular thing is nothing but a scatter plot. the whole thing is a 2D data point using your Cartesian coordinates. But the whole thing is again a scatter plot where x and y are spatial coordinates. X is here and y is here, and there is a third dimension which is nothing. This plus, this is cross mark, and maybe there is a circle here, there is a star here. Okay. So different shape is your third dimension. So maybe I mean based on whatever the thing which is there in the on the screen, one observation you can make is, I mean, in most of the cases, this plus and star are co-located. Plus and into, sorry. In most of the cases, this plus and into are co-located. This plus might be something. It might represent something in the data. These into might represent something in the data, or some item in the data. So in most of the cases, these two items coexist or co-located, or you can assume, or if you just assume this plus represents one item and into a cross mark represented one more item, you can tell by looking this particular thing or this particular graph or this particular projection, what you call it as, that in most of the cases these two are co-located, which means that there are chances that these two are bought together frequently, or maybe in a particular location these two are sold more. Some observation you can make. Basically these two are or tend to be co-located. Okay. So this is what is that, up till 4 locations it's fine, or 4 dimensions. If a data set contains more than 4 dimensions, the scatter plots are usually ineffective. In most of the cases it fails. So if the dimensions are more than 4, we use something called as scatter plot matrix. So this is one thing. I mean, anyways, after your InfoSphere, you will be in lab. After InfoSphere, you will be doing something called RapidMiner. So RapidMiner is a pre-processing tool where many of the real-time data sets are pre-fed into it. So one such pre-fed data or real-time data is your Iris dataset. Okay. That is what they have used here. Okay. So Iris dataset usually Iris is like a flower kind of thing. Okay. So there are 4 dimensions in it. One is the sepal length, the petal length, the sepal width, and your petal width. Okay. So this dataset in general contains 450 data samples with these 4 dimensions. But if you want to plot this using normal scatter plot, you might not get effective visualization. So the better way to plot such data sets with more dimensions is something called scatter plot, where each of the thing represents one of the species. So this is one way of representing. Basically, what is the disadvantage? Disadvantage of here is if it is 4 or more dimensions, it might not be too effective. So in that case, you will be this is with if the data is multidimensional, or if you want to see the data in a multidimensional space, you will be using geometric projection, for which you will be using scatter plot. But if the data set contains more than 4 or 4 or more things, or basically 4 or more dimensions, this scatter plot might also not work, or maybe rather it will be ineffective. So in that cases, we will be using the scatter plot matrix. Okay. So this might also be less effective as the dimensionality increases. So another popular technique, if for the multi-dimensional data set, or if the dimensionality is too much, even if I mean in that case, if even scatter plot matrix might fail. So if one such plot is called your parallel coordinates. So data visualization is pixel. Pixel, the problem is two-dimensional. I mean, you cannot visualize multi-dimensional data in a multi-dimensional space. In that case, you go to geometric correction. Here, you will be using scatter plot. But if as the dimensionality increases, the scatter plot might be inefficient. You go to scatter plot matrix. So until certain dimensions or a certain number of dimensions, it works well. But if the dimension is too increases beyond a certain limit, even scatter plot matrix might fail. In that case, you go to some method called parallel coordinates. Okay. So this is something which you'll have to know. I mean, what are different visualization techniques? So the next visualization technique is called icon-based visualization techniques, where we use small icons to represent the multi data values. And there are two popular things. One is called your Chernoff phase, and one is the stick figures. Okay. So this particular Chernoff phase, you can use it for visualizing multi-dimensional data up to 18 variables. If the data set contains up to 18 variables, you can make use of this Chernoff phase to view this data as a cartoon face. You can see this. Each of this is a Chernoff face, and each face represents a n-dimensional data point, where n is less than or equal to n. As I told you, up till 18 points, this works okay. So the components of this Chernoff face could be your eyes, ears. Here, ears, anyways, ears is not shown in this particular figure. Mouth, nose, and eyebrows. This might be your components in each of the faces, and each component represent the values of dimensions by the shape. See here, shape of the mouth is different. So it represents values of the dimensions with respect to the shape, size of each of the components, the placement, where it is placed in the face, and what is the orientation of it. Basically, shape, size, placement, and orient. So based on these four, it represents the values of the dimension. So maybe you can tell if the eye size is more, or if nose length is long, or if nose is too wide, or maybe mouth is wide open, or mouth is elongated. So each means something. So here you don't know the data set, so you might not be able to, I mean, tell what exactly this means. But all you have to know is, if the data set is multi-dimensional in nature and it contains up to 18 variables or 18 dimensions, One way of plotting such a thing is Chernow space, where each phase has multiple components, and based on the shape of the component, size, its placement and orientation, you can tell something about the dimensions. And for example, if the dimensions is more dominant, the mouth might be wide open, for example.
Question. Okay. Bro,
Someone's mic is open. Someone's mic is on.
ಟೇಬಲ್ ಕೂಡ ಬ್ರೋ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಮುಗೀತಾ ಕ್ಲಾಸು ಓಕೆ ಅದು ಬ್ರೋ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದು ಗ್ರೂಪಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಹಾಕಂಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅವನ್ನ
Summer, your mic is on. And it creates lots of disturbance. So this is one way. The second way is stick figure. So this particular stick figure basically maps your multidimensional data to the stick figure. That is normal thing. So it's like each figure has 4 limbs and 1 body. So here they have tried to plot a stick figure for census data. I mean, this you can't actually make out. Whether the thing is exactly a stick figure or not. But this is, you have to know, is one way or one method of plotting this multidimensional data is using stick figure, where 2 dimensions, any 2 dimensions are mapped to the display axis, that is x and y, and the remaining dimensions are mapped to the limbs. Okay. So here, with respect to this particular example, you can tell that age and income represents x and y axis. Then the other things, say gender, education, and other remaining things are given to the 4 limbs of the stick figure, and they are plotted here. So this is one way. So the next is hierarchical visualization techniques. So with respect to your hierarchical, it's like you partition the dimensions into subsets, and these subsets are visualized in a hierarchical manner. So one of the methods is called world within the worlds. So one example is given here. If you can see, this is the outer world, and this particular thing gives you the inner world. Okay. So this particular graph, we are trying to visualize a 6D data set, 6-dimensional data set, where the dimensions are f, x1 till x5. You can see x5 is here, x3 is here, x1 is here, x4, x2, and f. Okay. And suppose we want to observe how this dimension f changes with respect to other dimensions, that is with respect to x1 to x5. So we can plot something called as your hierarchical visualization, or in that there is one specific method known as world within the worlds. It's also known as N-vision. So it represents a hierarchical vision where the dimensions are partitioned into smaller subsets, and the subsets are visualized in a hierarchical manner. So this particular example gives you a 6D data set, or data set with 6 dimensions. 6 dimensions are f and x1 to xy. So if you want to observe how the value of f changes with respect to remaining 5 dimensions, you can plot this N-vision thing and observe. Okay. So that is one thing. Next is visualizing complex data. So you can't expect your data to be just numeric in nature. Okay. There are more non-numeric in nature, such as your text in social networks and many other things which are complex in nature, which is not straightforward. And visualizing and analyzing such data obviously would be of interest to many people, especially in present generation. So there are many visualization techniques dedicated to these kind of data, and one such technique is called tag cloud. So I think this is one example, tag cloud. So it's a visualization of statistics, or basically user generated tags. Okay. So usually the tags are listed in alphabetical order, most of the cases, or maybe in a user preferred order. I might not require alphabetical order. I might rather require order in which the size of the thing. Each size might represent something like this particular word is used more, and animals is used the least. So something like this. So instead of alphabetical order, I might require to arrange it in this according to the how frequently the words are used. So that is also possible. So basically, tag clouds, you can tell there are used in two ways. One is for a single item, tag cloud for a single item, where the size of the tag represents the number of times that particular item is used by the different users. Okay. So the second way, one is single item, where the size of the tag represents how many users have bought it. The second way is when you want to visualize multiple items. Okay. If the tag of a particular item is bigger in the size than some other item, you can tell that that particular item is more popular than this particular item. So something like this. So this is a snapshot of such a thing. Okay. So here we come to an end of the visualization part. So the next is measuring data similarity and dissimilarity. And this particular thing is very, very important because the entire data mining algorithm depends on it. K-means, that is one algorithm, K-meteorites in one algorithm. Again, in clustering algorithms, in many such algorithms, you have to first find the distance between data. Based on that, you will decide whether the data is similar or dissimilar. Based on that, you proceed solving a particular problem. So there are multiple data similarity and basically multiple methods or equations which you'll be using to measure the similarity. So that will start in the next class, that is on Thursday. When before you leave, just wait. I will just download the attendance. Okay, and I hope you are attending on time and you are there till the end. If some for 4 to 5:30 class, if someone joins at 5:15, I'm not giving attendance. Or if someone joins at the beginning, they join at 4:45, log out, come again at 5:10, then also don't expect attendance. I'm telling this on record while the recording is on. So which means that I'm dead serious. So please take care of not me, rather take care of yourself. So this maybe we will meet up in the next class for theory, and anyways we'll be meeting in the lab from tomorrow. Have a good evening. Take care.